We begin, though, with breaking news out of Minneapolis, where an ICE agent shot and killed a woman now identified as 37-year-old Renee Good. According to Minnesota U.S. Senator Tina Smith, she was a U.S. citizen. City leaders say she was not a target for an ICE-related arrest. Now, there is video. It was taken by a bystander. It captures the moment an officer fired at Good inside her car.
No! No! Shame!
And you can see officers confront the woman in her car. They try to open her door. She backs up. An agent in front of the car moves further to the driver's side. So when she puts it in drive, that officer pulls out his gun and begins firing. The car ends up hitting a parked car on the street, and other bystanders yell at the officers. We do have new pictures of the aftermath of the shooting, so you can see a bullet hole in the front windshield of the red SUV, which had crashed into a pole after the shooting. Pictures show the driver's side headrest and seat. So crowds of protesters flooded the scene after this shooting, clashing with federal agents. Officers set off chemical spray. They pulled people to the ground. You can actually see one protester throw a snowball at an officer. DHS says the ICE officer who killed the woman acted in self-defense, claiming she was blocking ICE activity with her car. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey called that a, quote, garbage narrative, arguing the officer acted recklessly and demanding ICE get out of the city.
What I can tell you is the narrative that this was just done in self-defense is a garbage narrative. That is not true. It has no truth. And it needs to be stated very clearly, since we have already seen a video of it. I do not know as to what you're talking about.
So moments ago, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was asked about the response from the mayor.
Secretary Noem, Mayor Frey called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
We have team coverage following this deadly ICE shooting. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga is live in Minneapolis, the neighborhood where the shooting happened. And CBS News senior coordinating producer Anna Schecter is tracking the response from state leaders now demanding an investigation. But let's start with Nicole. Nicole, you were there. What do we know about the victim and also the moments leading up to the fatal shooting?
Absolutely. And just to point out around me, what began earlier this morning as an immigration operation quickly turned into a crime scene. It is now a growing vigil and peaceful protest here. Now, you named the victim earlier. Renee Good. We know she was 37 years old. We know that she was driving a red SUV in this neighborhood prior to when shots were fired. We know that she was trying to maneuver her car on the side of the street. At this time, we've also learned, based on conversations with U.S. officials, that she was not the target of any federal law enforcement agents. You saw the video there and what transpired in those moments. What I can tell you is that moments after that, we were told by eyewitnesses that law enforcement flooded around her. They told them to back up, in the immediate moments following that sort of crime scene being built, there were protesters who flooded down to this area. Other eyewitnesses telling us they saw a medic give the woman CPR, but when she was ushered into the ambulance, it was quite clear to them that she had been pronounced dead, just based on the pace of how medics were moving around her. I can tell you that it's an incredibly tense scene right here in Minneapolis, that we've seen the gradual and then really quick buildup of federal law enforcement in the Twin Cities area. There are now more than 2,000 federal agents from DHS on the ground in Minneapolis. Just to give you a sense, 1,500 immigration agents. That is roughly 15 times the number that you would see on a typical day here in Minneapolis. And just for context for our viewers here, We should note that we're about a mile away from where George Floyd was killed in the summer of 2020. This is a community that neighbors here have described to us as being vibrant, as being friendly, as being diverse, but still hurting from that tragic incident and certainly hurting today.
Nicole, as we're talking to you, we're going to show a live look at the growing vigil and protest in that Minneapolis neighborhood where the woman was killed just hours earlier. And again, you were on the scene following the shooting. You saw the chaotic clash between protesters and federal agents. You described to us what you saw. Has the temperature changed a little bit now, or is it still in a heated moment?
Look, the situation here has been, frankly, tense all day. Now, I will point out this is a very peaceful protest, and we have heard folks singing, we have heard chants, we have seen candles being lit, we have seen flowers being left for the 37-year-old woman who was shot. So a very peaceful scene right now, but different from what we saw earlier today when tear gas was deployed by ICE agents against protesters. And we spoke to some of them as they were choking, as they were wheezing. We certainly saw a lot of angry shouting, confrontations between protesters and federal law enforcement, not just ICE agents, but Minneapolis police and the FBI that are the lead investigating this agent-involved shooting. So it seems as though things have settled for now. A very tense situation, though, as this continues. And by the way, we had felt that tension not only today, but in the days leading up to today. We had been in the heart of the Somali American community talking to folks who said that they were fearful, that they had noticed the uptick in ICE presence. We had spoken with ICE agents who said that they had noticed more protests, more confrontations, that they were scared of being doxxed. So again, a lot of fear right now, a lot of tension in this very small Midwestern city.
All right, Nicole Sganga. Nicole, thank you so much. I want to bring in CBS News senior coordinating producer Anna Schecter with more on this. Secretary Noem doubling down on the claims that this is an instance of domestic terrorism. Minnesota's Governor Walz, calling for a state investigation. So I want to know from you, how are these videos looked at from a legal perspective?
Well, it's a great question because the Department of Homeland Security is going to be building their defensive case that this ICE agent was acting in self-defense. And so they're going to use this very video that you're seeing on screen and others and make their case that the ICE agent felt his own life and the lives of his fellow agents were threatened. Meanwhile, I imagine that there are going to be civil lawsuits filed, and potentially a district attorney might file a charge based on these videos telling a very different story, that the victim, that she actually was just trying to drive away, and that the ICE official fired a shot and he was not in any immediate danger. These are very different narratives using the very same videos, and we've seen that happen before in other cases, and I imagine that is exactly what is going to play out in the days, weeks, and months to come.
Certainly, what happened before, what happened after. So the Governor Walz, issued a warning ordering the state's National Guard. He called it a, quote, heads up, that something could be coming. What kind of message does that send?
I think the message that Governor Walz was trying to send is you can protest and protest peacefully, but if you're trying to create a disturbance like they did see in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, they saw peaceful protests and then they saw bad actors trying to create a disturbance on the streets of Minneapolis. And what he's trying to say is, listen, we are going to call in the National Guard to help us keep the peace if we need to. It's a reminder to the public, while being very supportive of the public's anger about what happened here. Governor Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis both were in defiance in their speeches, in defiance of President Trump's rhetoric and Kristi Noem's rhetoric. However, I think they want to send the message that they do have National Guard troops. Some of them are actually undergoing training right now, but they will deploy them if need be. I think that was actually a message of, listen, we want to keep this safe, and we do have National Guard. They were also paving the way for bringing in the National Guard and kind of giving people a heads up that the Democrats, Governor Walz, is calling for them to come in. So if they do see National Guard's troops on the ground, don't, lash out at them or give them a hard time, because actually the governor might be calling on them to help keep the peace. I think what they're doing is they're anticipating potentially, given just what a lightning rod, a political lightning rod, the ICE operations are, and the fact that a woman now is dead, they're anticipating that people might be coming out and protesting, and they want to make sure that they are in a good position to have safe protests throughout the city.
Yeah, absolutely. If we backtrack a bit, can you talk to why ICE was there in the first place? Beyond the physical presence, what kind of training do they have when it comes to situations like this, and specifically deadly force?
Well, before federal agents are deployed, they should be getting de-escalation training. They should be getting training for working in urban environments, like within a city of Minneapolis, and working in a residential neighborhood where people might not be happy that you're there. It's unclear how much training the individual who fired the shot got, although Kristi Noem did just say at the press conference that this is someone with experience who followed his training. So it sounds like this is an experienced officer who has had training. I want to note, though, that immigration agents don't have the same amount of training as a police force will have in terms of not necessarily crowd control, but de-escalation. How do you control your anger? How do you bring down the temperature when things get heated with members of the public? Because what it appears to have been is you had members of the public enraged that ICE was there, and they were shouting at them to leave and taunting them and potentially blocking vehicles. And the agents need to be able to keep their cool in the face of that. And it appears that the opposite happened today.
Yeah.
So let's see how this plays out. We really need to know the results of a thorough investigation that is underway right now.
Anna Schecter. Anna, thank you so much.